Takes the snap, back to throw, under pressure, avoids the rush, and he's going to fight out of it. Still fights out of it, now throws it deep downfield. Wide open Tyree, who makes the catch at the 22-yard line. What a
Hey, here's a guy with a phone call. I mean, the way this works is someone's on the line and they dial a number, and that number is yours, and then boom, your phone rings. And your phone's ringing right now, and that means somebody's probably trying to call you. If it wasn't ringing, then probably there wouldn't be anybody trying to call you. But right now, boom, hey, somebody's trying to call.
Welcome to 3 the Hard Way Sports Podcast.
The tundra was frozen. The Minnesota Vikings were not. They were on their way to the Super Bowl.
Welcome, everybody, to 3 the Hard Way Sports Podcast. I'm Bryan Galloway here from Vermont. We have Alex Shanley. You're not in Rumson.
No, I'm following the snow, man. You know, hitting the slopes. So looking forward to talking some football tonight. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful day. So all is good.
There you go.
Wait a minute. Alex said he's following the snowman. Is that like some kind of weird cocaine reference? He's following the snowman.
White lines.
There we go.
Slow, running through my mind.
And all the while I think of you.
Baby. Okay. And then from parts unknown, we have Michael Pipersick. How are you, Mike?
Hey, I'm doing great. Clean living over here. I just got a glass of water with me. No cocaine for me.
Please, lies.
There you go. Cocaine Bear, my favorite movie. Okay.
Did you guys see Diplo on New Year's Eve admitting he was microdosing LSD while he was on TV?
No.
I guess not. Oh,
LSD, not the mushrooms?
Yeah, Anderson Cooper and that other guy were interviewing him. He was in a different location, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm microdosing right now, so I'm pretty mellow." They're like, "What are you microdosing?" He's like, "Oh, LSD."
I mean,
look it up. It's pretty interesting.
I know, but it's just like this is not something that we normally. This is, these are not the conversations that the three of us usually have. We don't sit around the table like, "Hey, Mike, did you microdose last night? Did you microdose last night?" Mike, yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, I did this.
Maybe a little psilocybin. You never know.
Yeah, that's a different podcast. That's a 3 the Hard Way drug podcast.
That's a Joe Rogan topic.
Okay. So after we got now we're through the drug references. We've
Anderson Cooper and the other guy. I love that.
I don't even know his name.
Nobody knows his name.
and just so you know, and I know you guys are very upset about this, but I just found out that the McRib was back, but now it's gone. I never even got. I don't think I've had one of those in years, but I didn't even know it was back. Did you know it was back?
I did.
Did you get one?
I did not, but I saw that there was like somewhere you could get the McRib sauce, like a gallon of the McRib sauce too.
That would be very
like a big gallon jug of it.
Good Christmas present for somebody.
I saw a drone trailing a banner that said the McRib is back.
The McRib is back. There you go. It was back, but we missed it. I didn't get any, so I'm sorry.
90% sauce. I remember eating it once when it came out. It was like all saucy.
I just don't understand how it could look like that because it doesn't. You can't pull the rib meat off like that, so it looks like it's fake to me. But anyway, okay. So enough of this banter. We are here to talk about a couple of things. The NFL season is basically almost done. We kind of almost all know who's going to be in the playoffs. There are a couple questions, but there's been a lot of surprises and a lot of disappointments this year. So we're here to talk about a couple of those. We can go, and I don't care which one you want to talk about first. You can actually go back and forth between each one. I don't know who wants to go first, but let's just go through a couple things that disappointed you or surprised you or maybe you're shocked about something. Whether it be a team or a person or something that happened. I don't know who wants to go first. Alex, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I'll start with an easy one. Sam Darnold is the biggest surprise, I think, of the year.
I love it.
I think so do I. I love it. I think it's great for him. I mean, he was, cast into the pile of, this guy's never going to work at quarterback in the NFL guys. And he went around and he took his lumps at the Jets. And then he went to the Panthers and then he went to the 49ers. and then he landed at Minnesota with who, I think right now is the best coach in the league, and Kevin O'Connell this year. Take Andy Reid off the list there, but I just think he just transformed Sam Darnold, and it'll be amazing because he may not even be there again next year. They may just get rid of him. I don't think they will. I think they've come to a point now where they're just like, I think they're going to offer him a big deal and either try to get rid of JJ McCarthy or franchise him for 1 year and see if McCarthy's really going to, be that good. But why not ride Sam Darnold? I mean, he's young. He could play for 10 more years. And so he was my biggest surprise for sure. And a big surprise in the way that I'm happy for him and happy for the Vikings. And it's just a great story for the NFL this year.
I mean, I can't. He was on my list. I mean, I'm happy for the guy. I'm so glad to see that he justifies himself. He made the Pro Bowl. I just saw. You gotta love it. And the guy, he keeps getting better. And he's just been amazing. I mean, what was his final stats right now that he's got 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 4,153 yards.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
106.4 quarterback rating. He never did this for the Jets.
And like every great quarterback, he's surrounded by great weapons, right? Like he's got the running back, he's got 2 receivers, he's got the tight end, he's got a great offensive line. So it's just a great situation for any quarterback to be in. But he's just really, he's turned his whole career around.
I agree. And he's a free agent, right? Isn't he a free agent? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, at the end of this year, he is. They can franchise him, though.
Yeah.
I read they could franchise him for like $40 million. So it's really, to me, this is something that it's going to go back to the coach, right? Because you're not drafting a guy. It's somebody that the coach looks at every day I guess JJ McCarthy hasn't really been playing a whole lot because he's recovering from an injury, but it's almost like, is the GM going to make this call, or is the coach going to say, hey, no, I want this guy, get rid of this guy that you drafted in the first round? Or, I mean, they could always keep JJ McCarthy. Who cares? They're not paying. He's on a rookie deal. So it wouldn't be horrible to have both quarterbacks, but if Sam Darnold wants the bank, which he deserves, it could get expensive on a long-term deal.
So on that same note, I want to piggyback on what you said. Now, because of Darnold doing so well, is Minnesota running away with their division a surprise to you too?
Well, they didn't run up because Detroit is still there.
Yeah, Detroit's there. But I'm saying, okay, 14-2. Both of them are 14-2, but no one thought.
Right.
You could not, in a million years, did you ever think that they'd be tied with Detroit?
Nope.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
It's amazing, those guys. Both 14-2. Pretty amazing.
And one of them's going to be a wild card.
Yeah. Which is sad, but what are you going to do? That's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be 2 wild cards in that division. That division has been a surprise, if you want to talk about surprises. Like the NFC North, which used to be kind of like a terrible division that the Packers used to rule for a long time. They've got 3 teams with at least 11 wins, and the Packers could end up with 12 wins. So they're going to have 3 teams in the playoffs. Just the awful Bears are not making the playoffs. But those 3 teams between them have, 39 wins. Like, that's astounding, like that division.
Yeah.
And they're all really good at home. And I think the Lions play the Vikings this weekend, right? Winner gets the division. Winner gets, I guess, the top seed as well, right? Because the Eagles are locked into the 2 seed, maybe? Yeah, I think the Eagles are locked into the 2 seed. So the loser of this Lions-Vikings game drops to the 3 seed. Winner gets the 1 seed and the bye, which is most critical, I think, at this time of year. But
would it be the 3 seed, Mike, or would it be the 4? Because wouldn't the other division winner get the 3 seed?
You're
right.
The
other division winner.
Yeah. That weird rule where like the Buccaneers with like 9 wins are going to get a home game against somebody. Someone with a better record is going to go on the road to go to either Tampa Bay or Atlanta, depending on what happens there. But But that North division used to be like, never like a great division. And now it's the dominant division in football. Like across the league, you look, there's no division that's got, 3 of the 4 teams with at least 11 wins. I mean, there's been a lot of parity and there's a lot of bad teams, but like it's been a surprise. I expected the Lions to be good, but with Kirk Cousins leaving Minnesota, Sam Darnold coming in as the fill-in because it was supposed to be J.J. McCarthy's team. Like that division's been a huge surprise, for me, even in the respect that the Bears are that bad. I thought they'd be better having drafted Caleb Williams and surrounded him with some really good weapons, I thought. Like I thought the Bears were going to be much better, and they're just awful, just terrible. They've lost 10 straight. Caleb Williams has been okay, but they fired their coach, and it's been a disaster for them. But that division to me has been a huge surprise at how dominant it's been.
Well, I'm gonna on that same note. We're gonna segue. I'm not. This is still Alex's turn, but the NFC West, in my idea, right now it's the Rams in first, Seattle, Arizona, and San Francisco. I actually thought it was going to be the complete split, split upside down. I thought San Francisco, Arizona, Seattle, the Rams. Like I'm shocked when I look at that. Now again, there's only 4 games separating, first to last place, but I never thought in a million years the Rams are going to be this good.
Well, I think that's a good segue to the 49ers being just such a huge disappointment this year. And not only in the real world, but on paper with CMC going probably number 1 in 80% of all the drafts.
Yeah.
And he doesn't play, plays but 4 games this year, and he's terrible. So they've just been, I think San Francisco needs have they peaked? Is the window closing? They have a lot of question marks, I think. Brock Purdy, Debo, Brandon Ayuk hurt all year, CMC hurt all year. Bosa with his injuries. Yeah, it's. I think they're at an inflection point where I think it's now going down for them for sure. So
yeah, and their defense has gotten they have the worst defense in the division too, which you never would have thought that, right? They were stuck on their offense was actually they scored the most points in their division and they gave up the most. So that's another interesting fact. But I'm just shocked. Yeah, they shocked me.
Yeah, and just like bad play, this is going to be a good game, and they just get blown out. It's just they're down 20 already. It's the first half. It's like what's going on? So they were just non-competitive in a lot of games this year.
Do you think the league's caught up to Kyle Shanahan? He's always been this innovative offensive mind, right? And they used Debo Samuel in so many different positions where he's almost like a running back. He's running these end arounds, all this dynamic stuff they've done on offense. And this year, and maybe it's just because of the injuries, right?
They had some crazy
injuries. Yeah, is it that, or is it that Kyle Shanahan's kind of the league is kind of caught up to him?
Yeah, I think it's the injuries.
Yeah, it's a good question, Mike. I mean, I don't. People are calling for him to get fired. I would obviously keep Lynch and keep Shanahan. I think they'll do a good job, even if it's okay, hey, our window's closing. Let's retool for the next group.
Yeah,
because they built this whole they put this whole thing together. So I trust them as running my team. But yeah, Mike. I mean, the league probably did catch up a little bit. I mean, their running backs still produced. When they weren't CMC level, but the next guy up did great. Then he got hurt. Then the next guy came in.
The third guy got hurt. Correndo got hurt.
He was great. Yeah, and then he gets hurt. But so every running back was. I think they really missed Ayuk a lot more than they thought they were going to. And he had the whole contract holdout. He got paid. He comes in and gets hurt, and that's it. It was a whole lot of nothing. So. And I think they knew how valuable he was. That's why they didn't want to trade him, and they wanted to keep him. And it showed. When he wasn't on the field, they kind of became one dimensional. I think Kittle's getting over the hill. They're like I said, they're at an inflection point now with a lot of players where, while they may be on the downslope, they're still going to be really, really good players, but they're not going to be that those guys that carry them to Super Bowls anymore. I don't think.
Well, One of the stories I had heard was when we were talking about Sam Darnold is that if the Vikings didn't want to pay Darnold, and they had faith in McCarthy. And obviously, Kevin O'Connell's an offensive genius, right? Because Cousins was terrific there. He goes to
Yep.
Atlanta. He's terrible. Sam Darnold walks into Minnesota. He's terrific. So there might be this thought in Minnesota, we're not going to pay Darnold. We trust our offensive system, plug in McCarthy. And they were saying that maybe Darnold goes to San Francisco and replaces Purdy, possibly.
Well, that's what he was last year because Darnold was in San Francisco
He was
last
in
year.
San Francisco, which would be interesting for.
But see,
for
the thing is,
Purdy's hurt again too.
Would you risk JJ McCarthy? Would you risk? You don't even know how he's going to play.
Yeah,
you'd have to know. Yeah, you'd have to.
It's too. I think you couldn't do that with the veterans they have. I don't know. Minnesota is a very intriguing team to me. Like I made my decision. We always talk about I need to find a new team because the Jets stink. But I was rooting for Detroit. I like Detroit. I want to see Detroit win. But I also like Minnesota, and I maybe I like them because of all their dance routines that they did. The High School Musical and the Parent Trap recently. I thought those were hilarious. I like their team. I like them. I like the Lions. I like them. They're both very good for football. They're refreshing. They're good. They have good players. They don't have a bunch of jerks on their team. I like both of those teams. They're good. They're going to be fun to watch in the playoffs. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, NFC playoffs are going to be fun. There's some intriguing teams there. Lions, Vikings, Packers, Eagles, Commanders are in the playoffs. Rams, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, very good. So, okay, Mike, what's your either big surprise or disappointment?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a surprise for me. I'm a little bit surprised that the Ravens are not more dominant. I know the stats look great for Lamar Jackson, 39 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and Derrick Henry's had a monster year, and they're 11-5, and they started off the season losing to the Chiefs and the Raiders, so they're 11 out of their last 14 games they've won. But I just expected this to be, if there was going to be a team, if you were asking me in the beginning of the season, there's going to be a team that's 15-1, who do you think it's going to be in the AFC? I would have picked the Ravens because I would just give a steady diet of Derrick Henry, and that would open up Lamar Jackson. And they've lost to the Raiders early in the season. They lost at Pittsburgh, who's been a pleasant surprise for me, actually. They lost at Cleveland to the Browns. I'm not totally sold that this team's going to get to the Super Bowl because of the way the Bills are playing as well. I thought that they should just have rolled through the NFL. I thought Derrick Henry was a steal and was just a great addition for them. So I'm a little bit surprised that they are not better. I thought they should have put this division away weeks ago, and I thought they would be the top seed by far in the AFC. I love Lamar Jackson. I'd love to see him win a Super Bowl. Derrick Henry's just a tank in the backfield. But I just thought this team would be blasting everybody, and they have been playing better the last 3 weeks. They hammered the Giants, who hasn't hammered the Giants.
Easy.
They beat up on the Steelers, and I think the Steelers are playing a bit over their level. And then they hammered the Texans, and which was not much of a matchup at all. But I'm a little bit surprised that the Ravens are just not more dominant this year.
I can't disagree with that because I expected them to be knocking people away. But you know what? Their defense is not as good as you normally expect the Ravens defense to be. Traditionally, they're always a good defensive team, but they haven't been. So that's interesting.
I've kind of put them in the category of, we can turn it on when we want to, but they don't. I feel like, okay, this is a big game, and and the Ravens go in there and they blow the other team out, and then it's almost like 2 weeks later you're like, okay, they should they're playing the Browns and this should be a gimme game, and then they feel like, we'll just turn it on, we don't need to practice hard, and I'm just making this up, but and then they show up and they lay an egg, and it's like, it's so uncharacteristic of their coach, right? Mm-hmm. He is always so well prepared that's the biggest head scratcher to me, is like, why aren't they prepared every week to go in there and do it? Now, I have one theory is I think they're holding Derrick Henry back for the playoffs. I think they've really limited his carries this year in games where you don't see him, in almost for a whole quarter of a game. And I think they're going to unleash him in the playoffs.
Well, and he's a playoff performer too.
Yeah. And it's just what Mike said. Like, it's going to be, we're going to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry every time, and then we're going to play action pass, either run with Lamar or pass off of that once we establish that running game. And I think everybody's going to be like, what are we going to do to stop this team, man? But we'll see.
They did that a little bit against Pittsburgh when they beat him. They were actually feeding him the ball a lot, and he looked gassed. And I was like, and I was like, man, why is Derrick Henry looking so tired? And look, they're 11-5. There are two teams with better records than them. So I love the idea that, hey, when we get to the playoffs, we're just going to unleash Derrick Henry, give him the ball 30 times, and then you have Lamar Jackson back there, in like an RPO where he could do whatever he wants. But you took the risk. If that was the strategy, you took a risk where you're like, okay, we think we can win in Kansas City, and we think we could win in Buffalo if it comes down to that. And that's a pretty gutsy move if they did.
Right, yeah.
But they got to stop people. They got to
win in Kansas City, and
they got to stop people.
And Buffalo can beat anybody, anywhere, except Kansas City in the playoffs.
Right.
So I'm a little bit. I think they should have played.
That's a good point.
To get like the top seed. Yeah, and they had it last year, right? And they couldn't beat the Chiefs at home. So
right now they would host a first round game against the Chargers. That's
they would hammer them. I would think they would hammer the Chargers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you my surprise, because I want to. This is going to work right in what you just said. So my biggest surprise is the Kansas City Chiefs. And now this is you say like, what? Well, if you remember, after the first 3 games, they could have lost all those 3 games. They could have lost any of. They could have been 0-3. They had Pacheco. Pacheco gets hurt. Hollywood Brown gets hurt. They really don't have a good team. They're hurting for players at that point. So then they bring Hunt back out of wherever he was, free agency. They pick up DeAndre Hopkins. Shockingly, right? I can't believe they got him, and just throw him in there with Mahomes. And now Pacheco's back and Hollywood Brown's back. So now they're actually stronger now than they were at the beginning of the year. I just, you can't. It's very strange, but it's going to be even harder than ever to beat the Chiefs. I really think the road to the Super Bowl is for the Chiefs, because you have to go into Kansas City. You got to beat them. And now they're stronger than ever because everybody's back from injury. So I am shocked. I have never seen Mahomes have as good a receiving core as he has right now. So we'll see what happens.
I agree with you, Brian. I'm shocked that they're 15-1, because I think when teams, you win multiple Super Bowls, you know what it takes to win the Super Bowl, and you know when you need to ramp your team up and play your best. And, to say that they're definitely playing better now than they were at the beginning of the year, but I'm just shocked that they got to 15-1 with, they had some tough games on their schedule, and games where like, I always felt like, and I think Jimmy Johnson said this too, like, they're going to lose in the first round, because you can't win these games when you get into the playoffs by, just give it to Patrick Mahomes and he's going to go down and score. And that's, at the end of the game. And that's what they're doing all season. And they've gotten a much better rhythm in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But it'll be interesting to see if they'll get the first round bye, obviously, but they don't get snake bit early on. I think if they get past that first game and they roll, I think look out. They may just steamroll everybody. But I agree with you, Brian. I'm very surprised that the record is, like 15-1. I thought they would be, around the 12 or 13 because they would have experimented with some stuff in the season, and then, that didn't work. Okay, let's do this. And Spagnuolo does that all the time on defense, right? Like, he's trying to figure out what the best defense is to play, and he may play a vanilla defense because he knows he's going to see you in the playoffs in the regular season. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do in their first game, which will be the second round of the playoffs.
It's almost like they're tinkering, right? It's almost like they're trying to lose, right? Because they know what the drill is, right? They know how to win Super Bowls. They've done it multiple times. They're going for a three-peat now. It's almost as if they're using the regular season to experiment with things, like you're saying, Alex, tinkering with the defense, trying some gadget plays or whatever on offense. They've won so many close games. They beat the Raiders by 2. They beat the Chargers by 2. beat the Texans in a tight game. They just beat up on the Steelers last week, but they've played so many close games. And like Bryan was saying, they could have lost their first 3 games. They could have lost. They should be around 11-5. The Ravens should be the team that's 15-1 in my mind.
Yeah.
The Chiefs should be 11-5. That should be the team that's not worried to me about going on the road because they've proven they've done it. I feel like these other teams like the Bills and the Ravens are probably more in need of being home and able to have a shot at beating the Chiefs. But I agree. I think it's a bit of a surprise too that the Chiefs are 15-1 because when you look at teams that have dominant records like that, they look dominant and the Chiefs don't look dominant. Yet here they are 15-1 and they're playing at Denver, who really needs the game. And I'm sure, I think Patrick Mahomes is not playing, or I think Carson Wentz is getting the start, or the ghost of Carson Wentz is getting a start. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
And so they're going to end up 15-2, get another week of rest while these other teams are beating each other up, and they're going to be rested, heading in for this run at a three-peat.
Interesting. It's a very interesting thought, but how strong they are right now. They're stronger than they were at the beginning of the year. You can't say that about a lot of teams right now.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, go ahead. You're up next.
Let me give you a disappointment, and I'm going to say his name, but it's really a team thing. And I'm hoping that it's just the sophomore jinx. C.J. Stroud didn't have a good year this year.
No, he didn't.
And and really disappointing fantasy pick, along with Jordan Love as a quarterback, who I had, who was disappointing. I actually ended up starting Sam Darnold most of the year, but C.J. Stroud, and I think it's a sophomore thing, right? I'm really hoping that D'Amico Ryans, they figure it out, because I think the Texans are a great team, and it's a great story. And, obviously football in Texas is a big deal, but them not taking that next step this year clearly has me worried a little bit. And I hope they don't turn on them before they really should, because I think that, it's a great team. It's still a great story. It was such a great story last year, and CJ Stroud had such a good year last year. Now, they're leading the division. They're 9-7. They've lost 2 games in a row, and they're not really good on the road. So they're like a 500 team on the road. So I look at them like, for them to be able to say, okay, we took the next step, they have to win a playoff game, right?
Yes.
If they go in at 9-8 or 10-7 and they lose a playoff game, and CJ Stroud doesn't get that kind of playoff atmosphere experience at least 2 games, I think it's a disappointing season for them. And they're in a terribly weak division.
Yeah.
They should win that division every year with the talent that they have. And they're just squeaking by. So I'm worried about them just literally getting blown out in the first round of the playoffs, and I hope that they don't. But to me, I think they've been a disappointment. I thought they were going to be like an 11-win team and really dominate their division, and then go into the playoffs in a strong position. I'm worried. I really think they're gonna get blown out in the first round.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, isn't Tank Dell hurt right now?
Yeah, he got a horrible injury.
Yeah, so
and
they're
Nico
in
Collins
trouble. They're not gonna. They're not gonna.
And Stephon Diggs, they traded for Stephon Diggs,
and
he got hurt. Yeah.
So I don't think they're. I mean, they're not going to win a game. I think they're limping into the playoffs. I don't think they're.
I mean, right now they're projected that they would play the Steelers. The Texans
in Pittsburgh, though.
No, because the Texans are the division winner.
In Houston, yeah, okay.
That could be their best matchup, actually, if they play the Steelers, because the Steelers have been kind of stumbling around here at the end.
Yeah. I think if they had matched up maybe with the Broncos too, I think they would have, because a younger quarterback and first time in the playoffs, so that may have been something. But I think
the game against Baltimore, 31-2.
Yeah,
it's almost like they gave up. I mean, that was just terrible.
Yeah. So that was my disappointment this year. I know. They'll pull the division out, but I really thought that they were going to be an 11, maybe 12-win team this year. So And like I said, it could be a sophomore thing. I mean, I think his QBR is down almost 10 points from last year, which is not a good sign. But he's missing Stephon Diggs, who they traded for in the offseason, who got hurt. Tank Dell just broke his leg. So,
And
badly
Mixon was
too.
out for him. Mixon missed a
Mixon
bunch of
missed a
games
couple
too.
games also.
Mixon was a great pickup for them this season. He really carried the offense. And Nico Collins missed his 2 or 3 games this year. So they were just a disappointment for me. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. Maybe they win one game, get that first round game.
Yeah,
So
I'm kind of
so
down.
Alex commented on how bad that division was.
Oh yeah,
that division is so bad that the other 3 teams combined have fewer wins than the Chiefs. That's how bad the division is. The Colts, Jaguars, and Titans, they stink. They all stink. Just
yeah. That division, they should have like a play-in game, right? So it should be them against the NFC South.
Yes,
That's like the Buccaneers,
the Falcons,
right? I mean, it's like ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Those 2, the AFC South and the NFC South, should have a play-in game just to be able to get to the playoffs.
There are a lot of bad teams this year. There's usually been parity in the NFL where a lot of teams have a shot at making the playoffs. There's a lot of really, really terrible teams this year. Like no shot of anything.
What for what, through the first, was it 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks? There were 8 teams with 2 wins, 3 wins. Yeah. I think 3 wins or less. There was 8 or 10 teams. So you're right, Mike. It's been tough. I mean, NFC South, Buccaneers at 9-7, Falcons at 8-8, and Falcons loaded up, right? New coach, new quarterback. They brought in everybody, 2, 3 new defensive, stars. They got Judon. They got somebody else in the defensive line. They were going to be it this year. And then the Saints 5-11 and the Panthers 4-12. But
yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me give you my big surprise, and this is one that I double blink every time I look at it. So, you talk about all these teams that have good defenses, and beginning of the year we talked about all the teams that we thought were going to have strong defenses. End of the year, right now, if the season ended today, the best defense in football would be the Chargers. I'm shocked. I just cannot believe that, and it's the truth. Now, again, they haven't been as good offensively as they were previous years, but I don't ever remember them having a good defense. And this year, they really do. They have the best right now. Now they could get blown out this week, and they could finish second, but I don't think they will, and it'll be tough. So I am just shocked. Points per game, they have the lowest in all of football. I'm shocked, and all these teams like the Jets and Baltimore and teams that we really thought were going to have really good defenses, no, they don't. So it's very interesting. Like Dallas, remember at the beginning of the year, everybody said Dallas has their defense is going to be so good. Dallas is next to last. So Chargers, top defensive team, shocking, and we'll see.
The offensive philosophy helps them, right? Because they're a run-heavy team, so they possess the ball, so they possess the clock. So they really control that clock, which is a Harbaugh trait. And I think he went in there saying, "Look, we're going to play great defense and we're going to run the football," and that's what they're doing. And I think that's what brewed success. I think it's a good formula.
14 interceptions and 46 sacks. So these are not shabby numbers. You never see those numbers from the Chargers. I mean, historically, they're not a good defensive team. They're an offensive team all the time. So interesting. Again, I don't anticipate them going far into playoffs, but shockingly that they have a really good. If you had them picked on your fantasy team, you probably did fairly well this year with your defensive points.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, you're on.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I've got a disappointment for me has been, and it's been all year. Every time I get my hopes up about this team, they make me sad. But the Bengals have been a huge disappointment to me. 8-8. I love Joe Burrow. I love watching Joe Burrow play. He's such a gamer. Like when they played the Chiefs earlier this season, that was a great game. It was week 2, but it was a great game. But they started out 0-3. They opened up by losing to the Patriots. Got a little bit worse. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Commanders. We didn't know what the Commanders were then, but they've been so up and down, and they've been playing really well the last month of the season. They've won their last 4. Granted, Cowboys, Titans, Browns, they beat 3 of those games, and then they beat the Broncos last week, which was a big win, kind of a playoff preview, hopefully, for them. And then they've got the Steelers this weekend, but they've got a shot at the playoffs, but they just dug themselves too deep a hole by dropping their first 3 games, and have just been like a real letdown for me, because Joe Burrow's gotten them to the Super Bowl one time, and he's having a really great season, right? 42 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, thrown for 4,600 yards, but running game has been okay. Defense has really struggled for them. And so they've been a really big disappointment for me, because I think that they should be the team that's in that position where the Steelers are right now. The Steelers have been a bit of a surprise at 10-6. I feel like the Bengals should have been in that position chasing the Ravens. And I don't know if Joe Burrow is getting a little impatient with this, right? He's been in press conferences where he's asked about other teams bringing in big players and, should his team make a move? And he just says, that's not my job. So he's gotten paid already. Like, he's got a big contract, but I know he wants to win. He won a national championship at LSU, took the Bengals to the Super Bowl. He's played in some big games with Patrick Mahomes. He seems to be the only guy that can beat Patrick Mahomes ever, it seems like. So that team for me has been like a real disappointment at 8-8. Still have an outside shot at the playoffs, but I think the Broncos are going to beat the Chiefs this weekend, and they're going to claim that last spot. So the Bengals are going to be on the outside looking in.
So you don't think Carson Wentz is going to try? Like, if Carson Wentz could win the game single-handedly. You watch. I anticipate he's going to do well, because I think the guy he's got a big ego. So I'm curious to see how that's going to go.
It's been quite a fall from grace for him, for Carson Wentz, too.
And if I was the general manager for the Bengals, from round 1 through round 7, I would draft defensive players.
That's all you can do.
Right.
Because they have nobody on defense. They have one guy on defense. And it's criminal, right, for what they're doing. Before it was they had no offensive line and Joe Burrow was getting killed. That's gotten a little bit better, but they have nobody on defense. So that's what I would do. It's a simple solution, right? First round, give me a defensive lineman. Second round, give me a defensive back. Third round, give me a linebacker. Fourth round, just 100%. Do a whole draft of defense. So.
100%. Or their free agent money spend, all on defense.
Yeah, they've given up like the 4th most points in the league. And yet still the Bengals are positive when you look at point differential. Like,
I'd love to see them make the playoffs. I love to see them make the playoffs, because on any given day they can beat any team. And that, so whatever match they play in the first round, it's going to be a fun game to watch. So I would love to see them get in. The Broncos, I like Bo Nix, but I really don't see him in the playoffs. I kind of think he's going to lose. So I would like to see, but we'll see what happens. I mean,
for Trey Hendrickson getting to the playoffs, he'll carry a hole on defense. That's like their plan. Their defensive plan is just have Trey Hendrickson carry him. It's crazy.
You can't do that. Yeah. Okay, Alex, who's your second? Who's your next one?
Well, let me see. I had a couple. I'm going to go with disappointment, and I know you guys are going to laugh at me, but really disappointed in Daniel Jones, right? Like, he was given all those years. They had the weapons this year. He has the talent shown in the Seattle game, right? I mean, they went and beat the Seahawks pretty handily. Ended up being closer at the end, but he played a great game, and that was it. Like, he never played another good game after that. And, it was, 6 years of trying to put him in the right position. And some years they did better than others, but, just disappointing from a Giant fan perspective that he wasn't able to get them to 500 this year. I really thought they could be a 500 team. Now, they had a really tough schedule. I think they had like the 4th toughest schedule in the league, but still, like, that's strength of schedule at the beginning of the year is kind of weird until actually teams play games and you really figure out who they are. But just really disappointed that he never took that step of consistently playing. I mean, if he played at the level that he played against Seattle, they easily win 5 or 6 games with him early in the season, right?
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, we're talking about a whole different ball game. But he was so inconsistent, and guys running wide open on plays, and he doesn't throw the ball. It's like he was thinking too much. And really, I think he landed in a good place with Minnesota. I don't know that he'll ever get an opportunity to play, but I think like Sam Darnold got when he went to San Francisco, sitting back and watching an offense run without having to run it and having the pressure week in and week out of running it helps you determine, oh, I would have made that throw. That guy was open. Oh, because you're seeing the plays over and over again. Maybe that'll happen for Daniel Jones and he'll get, a second chance somewhere down the road. But just a big disappointment for me as a Giant fan. And look, I wasn't thinking they were going to playoffs or being in the Super Bowl or anything, but I thought they could have been 7-8 win team and him be the focus of that. And it really just all fell apart early on. And the experiment has since ended. So disappointing in that for sure as a fan.
That's a good one.
When you're, as you were talking, Alex, I was thinking about it, and you mentioned Sam Darnold. So Sam Darnold is in San Francisco, and he's learning from the bench. He's learning from Kyle Shanahan, and then he goes to Minnesota, where he's with another great offensive mind, and he's learning. He's not expecting to be the starter because it's supposed to be JJ McCarthy's team. So he's learning there, gets thrust into the role of a starter, and he's fantastic. I'm wondering now if Daniel Jones now gets that opportunity, learning from Kevin O'Connell, and maybe lands in another situation with another very good offensive coach, gets an opportunity to play and turns around his career. Because, that it could happen, right? I mean, because I don't think anybody thought Sam Darnold was going to – Sam Darnold's in Carolina and then he's in San Francisco.
He's got the skills.
Forgot about him. But he's obviously a skilled player, right? I mean, Sam Darnold's a very high draft pick, as was Daniel Jones. It then makes me wonder, when it comes to the Giants, how good do you think Brian Daboll is, and does he stay after this season?
I think Daboll's a good head coach. I don't love watching like the Hard Knocks and stuff. I don't like the way he carries himself, but I think he's really carries himself, meaning in like meetings and, he's just kind of slouched down on the couch with his feet up and he's, trying to be the smartest person in the room. I didn't really like that, but I'm all for Joe Shane and Brian Daboll coming back. And for lots of other reasons, I don't think they wanted Daniel Jones. And I think Mara said, we need to give him the right opportunity. We need to invest in him. They said, okay, they get to the playoffs, and then they really got their hands tied, right? Like, okay, we won a playoff game. He did well. He's the reason why they won the playoff game. He's, the big reason. He and Saquon were the reasons why they got there. So I think they were stuck. They went the way they went. They did another year with those two. It didn't work out. Then they get rid of Saquon, so on and so forth. I really think that Daboll and Shane need a chance to draft their own quarterback and not get we're giving you 1 year to see if it works. You got to give them 2 or 3 years, right, to see if it works out, unfortunately. But I don't know if that's going to happen, Mike. I think, all the sports talk radio is saying there's a chance that they get rid of Daboll and keep Shane, which that would be a head scratcher to me. But to me, it's like, okay, if you get rid of him, who are you replacing him with? Right?
I have an idea for that.
Ben Johnson?
I think the next hot coordinator is Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator in Detroit. So if you fire
but he's
Daboll,
the number one.
Yeah.
But he's going to be the number one guy for almost every team except for Vrabel, right? Like if you want a defensive guy, you're going to go Vrabel. If you want an offensive guy, you're going to go Ben Johnson.
Yeah, but then if it's Ben Johnson, you have the allure of a top pick and getting a quarterback.
But he's going to want a quarterback. Like, see, here's the whole thing about that is if Ben Johnson's going anywhere, he's going to want to place with a good quarterback.
Well, he's going to pick up. He's going to get a pick.
He doesn't want Drew Lock.
Pick a quarterback. Yeah.
Well, the Giants are sitting at 4 right now.
Yeah, so, what a mess that's turned into, huh?
Yeah, it reminds me of the Jets with the Trevor Lawrence Jets situation there.
Yeah. So right now, the way that the draft is looking is, if everything stays without trades, they would get Cam Ward. So they have Shador going one, and then they have a couple. I forget the other two guys, an offensive lineman, maybe a defensive back going, and then Cam Ward going to the Giants. So, but like, is Ben Johnson better than Brian Daboll? I don't know. Brian Daboll's been a head coach now. At least he gets it. Ben Johnson's not going to be a head coach, right? He's going to be, okay, he's going to have to figure it out for 2 or 3 years. Well, what does it mean to be a head coach and all that? And some guys figure it out fast and other guys don't, right? Like the guy that went out to Seattle who took over, the defensive coordinator from
McDonald, right?
Yeah, from the Ravens. He's a great coach, but he's still trying to figure it out, right? Like, so it just takes time, even when you're a great coach. So that's why I say stay with what they have as like my long-winded thing. I would say stay with Dable and let him draft a quarterback and go at it with his guy.
What's the current order now? Is it the Patriots have the number one pick?
Yeah, the Patriots have the one.
Is it Patriots, Titans, Browns, Giants?
Let me look it up.
Patriots. If Patriots get number one pick, I'm assuming they don't need a quarterback. They're going like Travis Hunter, right?
Or they'll trade it away to somebody who wants a quarterback and get a load. So it's New England, Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants, and then Jacksonville. So
maybe they've given up on Drake May. You don't know.
No, he's actually not bad.
No, yeah. So who would want to move up? The Jets would want to move up. The Jets are at 7. The Raiders are at 8. They would want to move up. And New Orleans is at 10. They would want to move up. I don't think anybody else lower than that could probably get to 1. I mean, if they did, they'd have to give up their whole draft. But, I'm not. Seattle would be the next team, and they're at 18. Yeah. So you could have teams move up to get above the Giants to get it. So Jacksonville probably won't, but they could.
Yeah, a lot of teams need quarterbacks too.
Yeah, the Patriots won't trade with the Jets, though.
No, it's blasphemy.
The Patriots won't trade with the Jets. Yeah, that's probably true, Brian. You're right.
Okay, well let me go. Let me do mine now because I want to, in essence, of time. But so I want to say one thing before I start is that Alex, you made a really good decision at the beginning of the year. You said, "Hey, my sleeper this year is going to be Tyrone Tracy Jr." And I took him in 3 fantasy drafts as my last pick, figuring I have to tell you that guy turned out to be pretty darn good, and that for a guy that no one really knew about. I think he did a very good job. So I want to compliment you there. My obviously my disappointment is going to be the Jets. But before I say that, one other guy that disappointed me so much was Anthony Richardson. What a bum he's turned out to be. But that's
well, he's hurt.
He's always hurt. He's always hurt. So
when you have to run the ball because nobody's ever open and your offensive line is terrible, right? Like
I know.
You got to protect your quarterback.
They were crazy for drafting him anyway. He can't. He's not an accurate passer.
Nope. He's not.
His game is to run the ball, and then he's getting hurt.
Yeah, I know.
So it's a bad combo.
So he's a bum. So anyway,
I
don't think so. My disappointment with the Jets is this: it's not. There were so many question marks with Aaron Rodgers. I didn't know what we're going to get out of him. I thought their defense would be better, but I have to tell you, my disappointment is with Woody Johnson. All the stuff I've heard recently about this organization, I was just reading an article about with Mangini when Mangini. Remember Mangini had one good season, and then Woody came to him and said, "Listen, we're going to take Brett Favre." And he said, "I don't want Brett Favre." And he said, "Yes, you're going to take Brett Favre, but you take him and don't worry if you don't make the playoffs. Your job's fine." And they didn't make the playoffs, and their quarterback, who they had at the time, Chad Pennington, beat them in the final game of the season to get in the playoffs, and they didn't make it. So they fired Mangini, and as it turns out, that was all Woody interfering. And all these articles you hear about the Jets make their picks based on Madden ratings. And I'm just like, no wonder this organization is such a debacle. Now, am I disappointed? Yes, I'm disappointed, but did I expect them to do better? A little bit better than 4 wins. I didn't expect them to make the playoffs. I just had this feeling as a Jet fan that it wasn't going to happen. So if they made it, I would have been happily surprised. But 4 wins, yeah, I didn't think that. I didn't see 4 wins coming. Um, they're a disaster. They're a disaster. But my disappointment is Woody Johnson. Woody, please sell the team. We don't want you here. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. You're the disgrace. It's no one else. You're the person who's made this team as bad as it is. There's only one person who's been around all this time. It's been you. And please, do something. Make us happy. But the Jets will never be a good organization under his tutelage. So that's all
So
I have
Brian,
to say. Yeah, go ahead.
let me take the other side of it, right? And I agree with you. I think Woody's the problem, but being an owner as close as he is, right? Like he's Jerry Jones close to it. I think Mara's pretty close to it. Some of these owners you never even hear about, and maybe they don't even care. But I think what's strange about the Jets, right, is I think Joe Douglas was a pretty good GM. I mean, people that you can always throw up bad picks for any GM in the league, right? Everybody's going to have bad picks. But Joe Douglas, I think, had a plan and was executing on it. And then it almost changed. I was like scratching my head, like these don't seem like Joe Douglas moves. And it turns out because they weren't, because Woody Johnson was coming in and telling them what to do. But to take the other side of it, if you look and say, well, you had a bad pick and you did this bad and you did that bad and you told me to bring this player in and they stink. At what point as an owner do you step in, or do you never step in? Do you just fire them? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you step in and say, okay, wait a minute, guys, like you got to bench Aaron Rodgers. He stinks. So put him on the bench and start the other guy, even though the other guy's not going to be as good. But, like as an owner, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's
Okay.
hard
So
because they spend all this
supposedly,
money.
yeah, supposedly he did say to start Tyrone Taylor, but he also told they were going to they could have gotten Jerry Giroudi from, I don't know where
Jerry
he was
Judy, yeah.
last year,
Judy?
and they could have got him for a reasonable amount, for a reasonable
Like he was
trade.
at he was at the Broncos
Yeah, and so he had 84 catches, 1,166 yards this year. Um, I just,
on the Browns.
on the Browns, yeah, and
Someone had
so
to catch the ball.
they could have gotten him for cheap. And they didn't, because of supposedly his Madden ratings were not high enough.
Right.
And the fact that Woody came in and nixed the trade, yeah, that's the stuff that you don't get involved like that. You don't,
Yeah.
he doesn't know football. What does he know football?
But
He knows baby powder. He doesn't know football.
but did the fans want Aaron Rodgers?
I don't
Did the
know.
fans want him? I think they did.
Yeah,
I
of
think the
course. Who
fans
wouldn't?
wanted Aaron Rodgers. He got him Aaron Rodgers. Did the fans want Devontae Adams? Yes. He got him Devontae Adams. So the owner got him what they wanted. Unfortunately, listening to the fans who have no idea what they're talking about, right? Like we're fanatics, but he did all that, right? He spent the money to get all these guys. And he's not wrong by saying this is one of the best Jets team on paper in the last 20 years, and they stink. So I don't know. But I'm with you, Bry. The guy was born on third base. He just inherited a bunch of money, and I don't know.
Yeah, I just, it's
Get a new
sad.
owner.
It's sad. It's very sad to me. I'm really worried because if they go out, first of all, I hope they don't win tomorrow or Sunday, because I don't want them to win Sunday. I want them to get the best draft pick they can possibly get. But the way the Jets are, they're going to go beat Miami this week. You're going to watch. They're going to beat Miami, and then they're going to have a worse pick, and then they're going to bring back Rodgers. I hope they don't, but
Oh, I
they don't have
can't
another
imagine
option.
them
Who are they
bringing
going to
him.
sign? So we'll see what happens. But
Well, I've been waiting for this, right? Because I'm not a Jet fan, and as soon as they went down the Aaron Rodgers hole, I was like, oh my God, they are trashing themselves. They may be good for 1 year, maybe 2 years, but they are trashing themselves for the next 5 years after that, because you're not going to have a quarterback, so on and so forth, right?
No.
I mean, they drafted the kid last year, right, out of Florida State, who got hurt. Um, he was a really good quarterback, but then I think he tore his ACL or something late in the season, and that's why Florida State didn't make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, Jordan Travis. Yeah.
Yeah, they drafted him, and he's good, but like, why hasn't he played at all this year? Just put him in and see what you got. I don't know. That's what I would have done. Because after Aaron Rodgers is gone after the end of this year, which I think he's going to be, where are the Jets with a quarterback?
Nowhere.
Maybe they trade up, right? Maybe they trade up to 2. I mean, you're right. They probably wouldn't trade with New England, but maybe they trade up to 2 or 3.
Unless they give New England something so good. Yeah, you know what? New England did trade us Curtis Martin one time, so you never know.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I don't know. It's just horrible. It's just the fact that I'm ashamed to wear my Jets shirt out. If I'm going like grocery shopping, I have a Jet shirt on. I turn it inside out when I go.
You could just wear it, but put a bag on your head.
Yeah, put my bag on
the
my
old
head.
Saints fans.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So I really, I don't know if there's anything more to say, but anything else that really surprised you or disappointed you. But I think we kind of got a lot of good stuff in there. It's been a great year. Football's been fun. It's going to be a fun playoffs. I don't know who you guys are looking forward to seeing. I'll tell you right now. I'm not going to tell you. I don't know predictions because it's pretty much the Chiefs. But I would love to see either Detroit or Minnesota win. That would be really cool for me. What do you guys say?
Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, that would be a nice one too. I wouldn't hate that either.
Josh Allen earned it, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that either.
The only team to beat the Chiefs this year.
I was very impressed with Josh Allen this year because I don't feel like he has a lot of weapons, and he was fantastic this season. Never gets sacked.
It goes to say what Stephon Diggs was the problem last year, huh?
So good, yeah.
He was being a pain in the ass.
Yeah, Bill's Lions would be a fun Super Bowl, right? They had a shootout a couple of weeks ago. It was a wild game. Nobody's playing defense. It'd be a fun Super Bowl.
There you go. Okay, well, this has been a great episode, guys. Anything else? Any New Year's tidbits for everybody?
Go to bed early.
Yeah, we're all sick. Go to bed early. We're all sick. Take a lot of vitamin C.
Vitamin C and NyQuil.
There you go. Okay.
And no microdosing.
All right.
No microdosing. Okay, thank you, everybody.
See you guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
This is Tom Carvel. Thank you for listening to 3 the Hard Way Sports Podcast.